On the conference call again. We're going to start with questions from individuals who are here in the room. Please raise your hand. We'll get the microphone to you. Those who are on the phone, we'll get to you shortly. So the first question, Steve Summers.
Coach, Tennessee Tech runs a similar offense to you that you do. Do you know the Tennessee Tech coaches from your past experience?
Nope.
What more do you know about the Tennessee Tech
Just
team?
from our film breakdown, we have 2 games on it from this season. They played Hampton University in North Greenville. So our everything we've done is based off of those 2 games.
Get a microphone to Rick Morgan. Oh, I'm sorry, Rob. I didn't see it. Rob?
Byron Marshall, again, no carries last week in the game, but what sort of progress did you see coming out of week 1? Things that you wanted him to address in that game and picking up blocks, things like that. What sort of progress did you see in practice?
I've seen Byron progress since he's been here. There wasn't anything specifically after week 1 that we said he needed to address, but like everybody in our program, they need to constantly improve on ball security, blocking, vision, seeing holes, hitting holes, just like everybody else in this program.
Rick?
Just wondering who you're going to be looking for, if you have specific individuals in mind to fill some of the leadership void that you've got now with John and Carson being out for the season.
Yeah, I don't feel like we do. I mean, we've had 16 captains on this team, so we have 14 captains on this team. Our program is set up that we've handled this, and it's not uncommon. My first year here, we lost Willie Glasper and Walter Thurman and guys like that, and everybody seemed to pick up and move on, and we lost players. But I think we have a shared responsibility in that, and we don't rely on one person only. So.
Eric?
Chip, you've always preached one guy out, next guy in. What makes Avery Patterson ready to be a long-term starter for this team?
Avery's been a long-term starter for this team. He's played a ton of football last year and played a ton of football this year. So we don't look at it any different. I mean, if you look at our snaps in our first 2 games, I think Avery's played the most snaps out of anybody in the secondary. So.
Over to Warren.
Coach Watson Brown runs the up-tempo spread. What's the difference in tape that you've seen between your offense and maybe his? Are they doing anything different in their spread?
Yeah, they do a lot different. And people think spread means everybody runs the same thing. I don't think anybody's very close to anybody. What Mike Leach does is different than what Rich Rodriguez does, which is different than we do, which is different than what Todd Graham does, different than Gus Malzone, different than Watson Brown. So it's very tough on tape to see what up-tempo is because you just see plays and they're cut. You're not watching TV copies, so you don't know exactly how fast they get lined up or have any information like that. But, they seem like they're more of a 3 and 4 wide receiver set team than we are, so there's a big difference from that standpoint. So.
Coach Greatwood and Brian Jackson talked about the added benefit maybe of having Carson and Boyett almost be assistant coaches. Do you think they can have impact in that regard?
I mean, like anybody, they've been that way. But I mean, it's, I think we've got great coaches in Coach Greatwood and Coach Neal. So I don't know if, John and Carson are going to add anything that Steve and those guys do. We just want them around, I think, because they're part of our team. And whether you have the ability to play in a game or don't have the ability to play in a game, that's important that you're around and you're here for the team. But, in terms of Carson and John breaking down film and coming up with game plans, I don't see that happening.
I'm not going to that extreme, but like Brian Jackson was saying how on Saturday, Boyett was maybe seeing things from the sideline that maybe Neal wasn't paying attention to.
That always helps, and I think it happens no matter where you are when kids get hurt.
Over here, Rob.
You've stressed not talking about injuries, not trying to let them be a distraction. Do you feel like that's carried over your team? Do you see any emotional woe when somebody goes down? Do you really feel like they're able to rally
We always
themselves?
care about our players because our team's very close, and the same with our coaches. I mean, we feel for John and we feel for Carson, but we got to go play a game. I don't think the other team feels sorry for us.
When Josh got hurt in the game, do you feel like you guys are able to rally themselves quicker because of the loss and break it?
No, I mean, I think you got to rally yourself quicker because you got to play the next snap. So, I mean, that's not different than anybody else. So.
Yeah, that's your philosophy. You see it from
Yes.
Sophia, we're going to go to the phones now. If there are any questions, if you have a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. Are there any questions?
There are no questions at this time.
Okay, we're going back, questions of those who are here. Warren.
Coach, a bit off topic. Been a lot made about FCS teams playing bigger Division I teams like Savannah State playing Florida State. What's your thought about that as some of these smaller teams come in for the paycheck and play games like this?
I mean, we have to play a 12-game schedule, so in all the instances when we played them, those are the only teams available. So, I mean, it's either that or we don't play a game. So,
Eric?
Just back to John and Carson, just kind of seeing after everything that they've done for the program and under your leadership, how did you kind of take seeing how this happened to them, the way that their careers potentially end?
it's unfortunately part of the game, you know. And it, like I've said before, it happens, and it happens. It's happened everywhere in the country. You know, Sark lost 3 players last week at Washington. You know, the running back at Alabama's done. There's a wide receiver at South Florida. There's a kid at Tulane that just got injured. So, I mean, it's the nature of the business, and it's difficult for the individual, but as a team, we have to move on.
Questions? Well, up here, Rob.
Do you personally have any input in scheduling? I mean, are you talking to guys like, oh, maybe we could do a game in a couple of years?
No, I don't talk to individual schools. We just know when we have an open date, what's available, and everybody's locked in. We just had a conversation about a game in 2021, actually. So, I mean, it's a long way out. And usually when you're stuck, sometimes you're stuck without a game because someone bought out. Like what happened to us with Kansas State. You know, when you have to play how the cards are dealt with you, you try to map it out far enough in advance so that you don't have an open date. But, you know, again, it seems like I always talk about scheduling, but I mean, we'd love to play a lot of great teams. But number one, people don't want to come to Autzen Stadium. And number two, you know, it's who's available that week. So, you know, you can go right now. If you need to get a game next year, you may not be able to get a game because everybody's playing somebody already. So it's a difficult, it's not as easy as I think some people think. So.
In terms of the mechanics of the scheduling, you're involved in conversation?
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have final say on matchups?
Yeah, I mean, Rob asked me do we want to play them, and yeah.
Rick Morgan.
Looking back to last Saturday's game, the turnovers and some penalties were a little bit uncharacteristic. I remember John Wooden used to say that he used to, you know, probably scold his team a little bit harder after a win than a loss. Was that kind of the situation last week, that there was a lot that you wanted to clean up and there was some renewed urgency this week in practice?
No, I mean, we approach every game the same exact way, and our corrections are made the same exact way. So I've never believed in that you scold them more when you win or you scold them less when you lose. It's if they make a mistake, then we need to correct that mistake. So.
Up here, Aaron.
Back to scheduling, Coach. I know this is one of those hypotheticals off in the future that you don't like, but I'm going to go there anyway. With the playoff system coming up in a couple of years, Final Four, committee is going to select it. There's some theories out there that may lead to more big-time programs who have national championship aspirations seeking to play tougher teams, thinking that one loss against a top 10 team that's close is going to look better in the end than beating up on some teams you're favored to be beat by 40. Do you think that's possible? Do you think that could make it easier to get some of these teams who won't come to Austin to think we'll go to Austin? Because if we lose a close game, it may not hurt us as bad as it does today.
I have no idea because I've heard the other theory: schedule nobody so that you're undefeated. So until it plays itself out. I mean, are you going to take a one-loss team or an undefeated team?
If the one loss is to LSU as opposed to whipping a bunch of Fresno
All I
States,
know
yeah.
is if you go undefeated in those top conferences, you're going. So, but again, our schedule is made for the next couple of years.
Yeah,
so
no, I understand that.
it doesn't matter. You know, that's why hypotheticals. You know, I never really deal with them because our schedule is set. I think now till 18. So
Right.
we'll play with it.
Were you
So.
talking to a cupcake in 2020?
What's that?
Were you talking to a cupcake?
No, I mean
for
I
2021?
want to play since I've been here. We want to play. K-State was off the map. We agreed to play LSU in a neutral site game. I mean, I want to play in those games, but you know, the whole thing for your fans: be careful what you wish for because we won't be at home. You know, and then how come we don't get to see you play? Well, because no one's coming here. So we haven't had a lot of people. I'll give Coach D'Antonio at Michigan State credit. He wants to play home and home. We want to play home and home. We've had a lot of offers to play neutral site games. But I don't want to play neutral site games. I want to play in Autzen Stadium, and then we'll reciprocate and go play in their place. But there's not a lot of home and homes that have been offered up to us. And if they are, we'll receive those. You know, I think we got Texas A&M coming up. We've got Michigan State coming up. Those are exciting games for us in the future. But
Do you find that lack of competitive edge by some of those teams rather pathetic?
I don't care. I mean, I don't worry about things I don't control. So just move on. You know, I can sit there and lament all day long where I really wish these guys would play us if they're not going to play us. And to be honest with you, I'm concerned with coaching my team during the week. So.
Question over here.
Looking back at this last game, what were some of the greatest teaching moments that the team took away?
I would say, you know, really what happened to us in the third quarter, you know, and then if kids' cell phones go off in the middle of meetings, you know, we try to correct that. But those would be two of the biggest points that we'd look towards. So, no, I think what happened to us in the third quarter, we faced some adversity. Really pleased with how our defense went out in the field. We talk about response after a turnover a lot. And then I was really happy with how our offense finished the game off. You know, those are some teaching points that we'll try to highlight.
Questions? Lee.
What do you get out of those meetings you have with D'Anthony that are probably pretty unique for head coaches?
Yeah, I think that's probably. I coach a position, so I don't meet with just D'Anthony. I meet with D'Anthony, Braylon Addison, Daryl Hawkins, sometimes Josh Huff, sometimes Keenan Lowe. So it's just a position meeting like every other position meeting. So.
Did that start when you got here, or does that go back?
Yeah, I've done it. I met with Ed Dixon. I met with Michael James. I met with Kenyon Barner. I just kind of coach. I coach a position, so I coach those hybrid type kids that play more than one position. Ed played tight end and running back. You know, LaMichael and Kenyon, when they first got here, were running back / receivers. You know, D'Anthony's a running back / receiver. Josh Huff has played that role. Daryl's played that role. So it's just a position meeting. It's not a, you know, we're not playing psychologist or anything like that. It's what our game plan is, and it's just trying to execute. And every one of our coaches has a position group, so everybody's coaching. So we're just trying to maximize our coaches so that we don't have a kid like D'Anthony that's got to go to the wide receiver meeting for 15 minutes and then run down to the running back meeting for 15 minutes, so that we're covering everything with him. But it's the same thing with Braylon Addison and Daryl Hawkins and Josh Huff and Keenan Lowe. So.
Rob.
Lined up Colt a lot of different ways last week, and you moved David Paulson around too, but they're kind of different kind of athletes. Are there different things you can do with Colt because of his athleticism than you did with David, or was what you did last week pretty similar to the stuff you did with David?
No, that's just part of our tight end package. We've always done that. We did it with Ed. We've done it with David. We do it. Our tight ends are, you know, we don't have fullbacks in our offense. Our tight ends are both fullbacks and tight ends. So, you know, Oz handles all that with those guys. So we've done that, you know, since I've been here with Ed, starting with Ed Dixon, and then we're recruiting guys like that. But we'll do the same thing with Farrow and TJ and Koa and those guys. It's just who's in when we call that.
Whatever you call it, line up two guys really wide. Colt was one of those guys. Yeah.
Did that with Ed all the time. We lined up Ed as a running back. We lined up David as a receiver. We've done it with Malachi. You know, we did it with Matt Larkin. I mean, it's just part of our package.
Eric.
Nick Galliotti joked that he wished Avery Patterson had a few more inches, but said that his heart is second to none. What do you like about his play?
Avery's a competitor. You know, you watch him. Think about the play in the Stanford game, punching out the fumble from behind. He's been a great special teams player for us for the last couple of years. He's always been on the field for us in a lot of really, really big spots. He's smart. He's got a real good instinct and knowledge for the game, and he loves playing football.
Jordan.
Well, Michael James stressed how smart you have to be in this offense. Which newcomer has impressed you the most in terms of really grasping the playbook?
A lot of those guys have, and that's why they're playing. Braylon Addison, Farrell Brown, T.J. Daniel, Koa Kai coming over, never playing offense in his life, has picked it up pretty well. And even some of the young guys, Dwayne Stanford has picked it up very quickly. Jeff Lockie and Jake have picked it up pretty quickly. So, you know, part of that is in the recruiting process of making sure you get guys that have a pretty good knowledge base to them. So,
Alex.
Chip, do you have like a memory of John or Carson on the field of like what they meant to you? I mean, you know, just something that stood out to you as far as their personality or something like that and what they were able to do?
Yeah, they're both different. You know, John's an ultimate competitor. Carson was a little bit more reserved, but still had a burning desire to compete inside him. You know everything you want. Carson's a 3.6, already graduated in grad school. You know, John graduated, I think, just 2 weeks ago, actually, finished after the summer term. So 2 weeks ago on Saturday, John graduated. So both, you know, did what they were supposed to do, not only on the field, but off the field and in the classroom. So.
Is there like a moment or something like that?
You caught me off guard. I'll think about it and write it down afterwards.
Coach, you talked about Dwayne Stanford couple minutes ago. What kind of player do you see him developing into in the next 4 years?
Hopefully a really good one. You know, he's got a lot of skill set, tall, long, got great range, outstanding hands, great jumping ability, intelligent. He's got a good understanding of athletic positioning, was a really good basketball player, understands spacing. So I think there's a real high ceiling for Dwayne.
Warren?
Coach, Pac-12 had a good weekend this last weekend with UCLA's win and Arizona's win over Oklahoma State. What are your thoughts, I guess, on the conference and how difficult it's shaping up to be and how tough it is?
I'm worried about our one game this week, Warren. So, I mean, I'm happy for those guys. I got friends, really happy for Mike Riley and beating Wisconsin, but we don't play Oregon State till the last game of the season, so we don't think about, oh, these guys won on Saturday. Conference race is going to be difficult. I mean, you have no idea. It's 1 week to the next, and it's the same with everybody. In the first week, this league's good. The next week, this league's good. Then someone loses, and then the next week, that's good. So we don't get caught up in any of that.
A lot of your fans are hoping they haven't seen the last of John or Carson. Is there any scenario by which you could foresee them getting a sixth year, either one of them?
I mean, you got to talk to compliance about that, but I don't anticipate that, to be honest with you.
Sophia, we're going back to the phone lines one more time. If you have a question, please press *1 on your telephone keypad. Last chance.
There are no questions at this time.
Silence speak golden. So we're going to wrap up here. Go ahead, Derek.
Tyler Johnson said that he and Kyle are basically battling every single day at that left tackle position. How has that made each of them better, and what do you like specifically about just the way those two compete?
But it's like that at every position. It's the same thing that Brian and Marcus do every day. It's the same thing that Kenyon and DeAnthony do every day. It's the same thing that our tight ends are doing every day. So, it's healthy when you have the depth that we have, that guys are going to go out there and compete every day. And it adds to, really what was one of our strengths of our team is our depth. So, I like the way both those guys compete. They both play. And you're going to need them both. As the season goes along, when you do lose players, make sure you got to have depth. And I think that's what we have right now. So.
Are you concerned about that depth with Boyett out now, or are you still like the depth in the secondary?
I like the depth in the secondary. I like the depth in the offensive line. I like our depth overall. I know there's a lot of people in the country that would like to have our group and then some other groups. So.
Steve.
Coach, what concerns do you have about Tennessee Tech? What do they bring? We know they're a fast-paced offense. How's that going to? What concerns do you have as far as your defense goes playing this team?
We have concerns. Their running back is second in the nation in rushing the football. Their quarterback second in the country in pass efficiency. You got an outstanding receiver in Derek Rogers, who just transferred from the University of Tennessee. Big, tall, rangy target. They've got a great understanding and grasp of their scheme. You can tell, that they've been well coached. Watson Brown's been around for a long time. I think he's in his 27th year as a head coach. So, they know how to take advantage of what people do in terms of how they deploy their defense. And they got a signal caller in I think he's got a really good understanding of their offense when you watch where he's going with the football and decisions you're making. He's actually a fun kid to watch on film. So it'll be a challenge when they come in here, but it's not unlike what we do. So I don't think they're going to catch us not lined up on defense, because we play fast every day in practice. So they get a pretty good, our team gets a pretty good feel and a judge for it. I think going against each other in practice helps us in playing in games like this.